Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Millennial Revolt, an independent political talk show that seeks to bring a different narrative than the stale one we have going on right now in the mainstream media. So, today we're going to be talking about the Democratic Party. More specifically, we're going to be talking about how the Democratic Party is basically collapsing before our eyes. We're going to be talking about the infighting that's going on. We're going to be talking about how the Democratic Party has not learned its lesson from this election and the beating that they got. We're also going to be talking about the policies that the Democratic Party has put forward throughout the last 8 years, which has also contributed to this loss. And we're going to be talking about identity politics, which is one of the most important factors, I think, that the Democratic Party has not yet learned, and they are continuing to pander to, and which will contribute to them losing in the midterms and maybe possibly 2020. So let's just get right into this because there's so much to discuss. So, what we have in the Democratic Party right now is so much infighting. Now, after the loss of the election, the Democratic Party, instead of doing their postmortem, correctly identifying the problems that occurred during the election, why the American people in overwhelming numbers rejected the Democratic platform that they put forward, instead went to the Republicans, they are now blaming the American voters. What you see in some cases is Hillary Clinton blaming James Comey. She's also blaming John Podesta, calling him ineffective. What you see is the DNC blaming Hillary Clinton and blaming President Obama for the loss. What you see is other Democratic Party operatives blaming white women for not voting for Hillary Clinton, basically saying they're voting against their interests. What you see is they're also blaming African American voters, they're blaming Latino voters, and they're blaming young voters for not coming out to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, what has happened since 2008, and if you look back at it, the Democratic Party has been playing on identity politics. Now, what you saw is an overwhelming rejection in this election of what has been a culmination of 8 years of identity politics. Now, the Democratic Party has been playing on identity politics since as early as 2004, and the culmination of this has been as early as 2008 with the election and the presidency of President Obama. Now, back in 2004, Michael Lind argued that in order for the Democratic Party to regain a majority, the Democratic Party should attempt to disassociate itself from identity politics groups, such as blacks, Latinos, feminists, gays, and lesbians, and economic interest groups like unions, and instead try to organize itself geographically. Contrary to popular belief, the Democratic Party has been in a steady decline, and it's more felt even on the state and local levels. The Democratic Party has lost a tenth of the party's Senate seats, a fifth of its House and state legislative seats, and a third of its governorships, something which hasn't been seen since the repeated routs of the Republicans in the 1930s. So, one of the main contributing factors for the Democratic Party's loss, besides identity politics, is its gross mishandling of the economic crisis. And it's the same thing that killed the Republican Party in Hoover's generation. Now, just to give you guys some context, the Democratic Party had full run of the federal government from 2008 to 2009. Now, if you remember when President Obama was elected, he came in with a supermajority. He had control of the White House, he had control of the Senate, and he had control of the House of Representatives during the worst economic disaster that hit our country in 80 years. And they did not fully fix mass unemployment nor the associated foreclosure crisis. So I want to give you guys some context as to what's going on and what has led the Democratic Party up to where it is today. Now, during the 1970s, the Democratic Party gradually embraced the neoliberal ideology of markets and deregulation. More and more Democrats embraced the idea that markets were self-regulating, that unions were not worth defending, and that monopolies were nothing to get worked up over, and that large deficits were, by definition, bad. In 1972, a faction within the Democratic Party seized the Democratic Party presidential nomination, defeating all the other candidates and putting up George McGovern as the nominee. He proceeded to get totally destroyed in the general election, losing by 23 percentage points and 503 electoral votes. Now, a new generation of liberals centered around a man named Al Forum and his organization, the Democratic Leadership Council, called themselves the New Democrats. They mobilized to make their ideology the dominant one in the Democratic Party. As more or less traditional Democrats lost in 1980, 1984, and 1988, the older New Dealers aged and retired, their arguments gained credibility. By 1992, they were the party's center of gravity, and one of their own was elected to the presidency, aka former President Bill Clinton. Unions fell into secular decline, manufacturing jobs were annihilated by trade agreements, antitrust enforcement was all but halted, and welfare for the very poor was gorged, and finances were deregulated. President Obama was heavily influenced by these people, and Hillary Clinton was following in the same ideological tradition. The Democratic Party is in worse shape than it has ever been since before the Great Depression. This is the first time since 1928 that Republicans will hold the House, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, most state legislatures, and governorships. In the early months of the Obama administration, the Congress passed the Recovery Act stimulus package, and after the first stimulus package failed to restore full employment, the ideology problem got much worse. The DC political and media elite, including President Obama and most other Democratic big shots, became absolutely obsessed with cutting the deficit. Now, there is equal blame to be shared because in post 2010, Republican obstruction also became a problem. It dramatically slowed the recovery. It is only in the last year that unemployment has declined to a reasonably good level, and the fraction of prime working age people with a job is still worse than the bottom of the previous two recession. What's more, the fruit of the recovery has been highly unequal, with much of the income flowing to the top 1% and most rural places left out. The foreclosure crisis was even worse, and the handling of it was probably one of the worst things that the Obama administration ever did, and they also helped it happen. The financial products underpinning the subprime mortgage boom were riddled with errors, and in order to be able to foreclose on people who had defaulted, they had to commit systematic document fraud. This epic crime spree gave the White House tremendous leverage to negotiate a settlement to keep people in their homes. But instead, the administration co-opted a lawsuit from state attorney generals and turned it into a slap on the wrist that reinvigorated the foreclosure machine. There was also $75 billion in the Recovery Act to arrest foreclosures. So as this crisis was happening, many people in the political class just threw monies at the bankers until the financial sector was stabilized. Afterwards, any idea that the crooks on Wall Street might have committed a crime was too big for many of these people to swallow. The idea that people were sitting on the trading floor committing crimes all day could not even be something that they could imagine. So, what did many Democrats do? Many of them had big consulting gigs in the back of their minds, so they basically looked the other way. No bankers went to jail, and over 9 million people lost their homes. The fact of the matter is, the Democratic Party had 2 years to fix the Depression, restore the housing market, hold Wall Street accountable, and basically cement a new generation of loyal Democrats to the party, and they fucked it up. Now, this is not to absolve any of the Republicans from obstruction and what they were doing in the Congress, but when we had the House and the Senate, we should have gotten things done. Instead, President Obama rammed through his Health Care Act, which basically ate up all his political capital. Most of the economic recovery that occurred happened basically on the coast. The Midwestern states and the Rust Belt got nothing. They were still financially and economically hurt. They never recovered from our mini depression. Now, these are the same states that were solidly blue that turned red in this election. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. These states were the states that were hard hit. These places were the places that seen all the manufacturing jobs, the white collar jobs, the good jobs that maybe if you decided you didn't want to go to college, you could just work right out of high school. These jobs were going overseas. And the Democratic Party did nothing to address this. What they did do was alienate their voters and call every single white person a racist or bigot or homophobe for not supporting the progressive agenda on social issues that the Democratic Party was trying to ram down everyone's throats. So what did you have happen? The Democratic Party took a beating. They were losing governorships, they were losing in the state legislatures, all across the country, and the Democratic leadership did nothing to address this. The American people on a state level was growing to despise the Democratic Party because, as I said before in a previous video, the Democratic Party says anything, but they change nothing. And you can see this all throughout the country. The only place where I think they have a supermajority is California. And that is just one part in the reason of why the Democratic Party is basically collapsing and eating itself alive. The second part is identity politics. And the Democratic Party has been doing this for a very, very long time, especially now with the top leadership position being basically given, the top contender is basically Keith Ellison. The only reason why he is being nominated is because he is black and because he is a Muslim. He has no record of achievement, nothing to distinguish him or put him over the top spot. They are pandering and playing to their base. And if the Democratic Party keeps doing this, and I will make this prediction now, if Donald Trump even fulfills half of the policy proposals that he has put forward, and he helps and stimulates the economy enough to help the Rust Belts, he will retain the House, the Republican Party will retain the House and the Senate, and he will easily win re-election and probably turn more blue states red. I make this prediction now because it seems that the Democratic Party is not learning their lesson. It seems that they're doubling down on the toxic brand of identity politics, and that's one of the reasons why Hillary Clinton lost in the first place. Because the only thing that she kept claiming was she had a vagina and that she was better than Donald Trump and that women had to vote for her so she can break the glass ceiling. You weren't bringing anything new to the table or any policy proposals that people haven't heard before. It was more these neoliberal economic policies that have failed in the past. Throughout the campaign, we saw that Hillary Clinton in most of her political ads was painting Donald Trump as the misogynistic, racist, bigot, homophobe, and basically he was the person against minorities, against women, and that she was the hero to save all of us. Now, this is not to say that Donald Trump's rhetoric and the things that he said, I'm not defending it because he has said some things. He is very rude and uncouth and crass, but given the fact that we have turned into an overly politically correct society where we're espousing microaggressions, this is what you have. Now, Donald Trump had a message throughout the campaign. His message was make America great again. Right or wrong, whether you like it or not, that was his message. That's what he was putting forth to the American people. For the first part and half of Hillary Clinton's campaign, her message was I'm with her. I don't care about you. I care about the policies you are putting forward. And that is the same thing that many American voters thought about. What are the policies you are putting forward? Many of the policy proposals and things that she was talking about are some of the things that has failed in the past. She was doubling down on failure. She was supporting the TPP, which President Obama was trying to ram through. Thank God it's dead now. And she supported NAFTA, and this is what the Democratic Party put forward. Was their representation to the American people. The Democratic Party's culmination of its identity politics is putting forward Keith Ellison. Now, don't get me wrong, he's backed by some big names in Congress. He's backed by Minority Leader who's leaving, Harry Reid. He's backed by the new Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer. He's backed by Bernie Sanders, and even Elizabeth Warren. But what it doesn't change is the fact that he has very questionable ties in his past that, if he is put forward, is going to raise a lot of questions about what kind of person that the Democratic Party is putting forward. Now, if the Democratic Party continues to do what they are doing, they are going to, by abandoning their broad base, which is the white middle class voters, and the relentless pandering to the party's left wing, all they're going to have is aggravated minorities, divisive identity politics, college millennials, angry women who represent the Democratic Party. And no one is going to want to be a part of it. Nobody wants to be a part of a party that's all that they're talking about is race all the time. Everything is racist, everything is sexist, everything is homophobic, everything is bigoted. But you're not putting concrete policy proposals forward to help everyone move forward. The Democratic Party leadership as a whole does not seem concerned that their voters care more about their economic conditions and care about the fact that no one on Wall Street was jailed for what they did to the economy. It seems that they're playing the same identity politics that they have used since the 1960s to divide Americans into hyper-hyphenated special interest groups. 95% of people realize that their incomes and net worth have declined, not recovered. The national income and Federal Reserve statistics show that all growth has occurred to just 5% of the population. Hillary Clinton spent $1 billion on polling, TV advertising, high-salaried staff members, but no one managed to see the polarization that was happening throughout the country. No one managed to notice this. When Bernie Sanders was basically shoved out of the Democratic primaries, she all but ignored economic policies and basically told all of his supporters to go join third parties, which I did, and that's why I voted for Jill Stein in the election. Her campaign speeches tried to convince voters that they were better off than what we were 8 years ago, and they knew better. And this is what I said in a previous video. If people see their wages going down and their bills continue to go up, they're going to take a chance on Donald Trump, who is telling them something different, which they did. And as I said, the Democratic Party will say anything but change nothing. They were sitting there selling you a dream that everything was perfectly fine when you know damn well that your pockets were hurting, your bills were stacking up, you could not afford to put food on your table, and they were more concerned with social issues and calling people racist and bigots because they didn't want to break the glass ceiling with Hillary Clinton. So if the Democratic Party does not change its ways, it's going to become a minority party in this country, because Donald Trump has fundamentally changed the Republican Party. They are not a party of old men anymore. They are reinvigorated and they are different. And the thing is, with Donald Trump at the helm, they are now a pro-LGBT party. They are a party full of the working class. They are a party that's probably going to bring in any minorities. And as I said earlier in this video, if Donald Trump even fulfills half of the campaign promises and the policy proposals that he has put forward, his party will win the midterm elections and he will easily win re-election. He will have a Reagan-style Republican eruption in this country. Mark my words. And if the Democratic Party wants to not become a minority party in this country, they are going to have to start addressing economic issues and lay off the social issues because people are getting tired of it. I am a registered Democrat. I am registered to the Democratic Party, and I am tired of hearing all the damn time that everyone is racist, everything is racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic. If you look, 8 years ago, this was not what our politics about. There was actually substance to what we talked about. It was not about gender. It was not about race. We are more than our skin color. We are more than our gender. We are more than all of this. And the fact that we are reduced to this petty bullshit because of one political party in this country is the reason why the Democrats will continue to suffer and lose. So I'm going to leave you guys with a quote. Identity politics divides us. Fiction connects us. One is interested in sweeping generalizations, the other in nuance. One draws boundaries, the other recognizes no frontiers. Identity politics is made of solid bricks. Fiction is flowing water. I'm the Millennial Revolt. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day. Bye.